Shodanandana Ajanaranjana Shodanandana Ajanaranjana Yamunatiravana Chari Yamunatiravana Chari Radha Madhava Kunjavihari Radha Madhava Kunjavihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Shri Shukavacha Iti Udavat Upakarnya Suhridam Dusalam Dusaham Vadam Jnanena Ashamayat Shata Shokam Utpatitam Buddha. Shri Shukavacha Ejudavadupakarnya Suridam Dusahambadam Jnanena Shamayat Shara Shokam Utpatam Buddha. Shri Shukavacha Ejudavadupakarnya Suridam Dusahambadam Jnanena Shamayat Shara Shokam Utpatitam Buddha. Shri Shukavacha Idyudavad Suridam Dusahambadam Jnanena Shamayat Kshita Shokam Utpatitam Buddha.
Shri Shukavacha Nityutavatupakarnya Suridangdu Sahangvadam Ganena Shamayat Shata Shokam Utpatitang Buddha.
Shri Shuka Uvacha Ityudhavarupakarnya Surhidham Dusahambhadam Jnanena Shamayakshata Shokam Utpatitam Buddha.
Shri Shuka Vacha Ityudavadupakarnya Suhridam Dusahambharam Jnanena Shamayachata Shokam Utpatitam Buddha.
Shri Shuka Uvacha Ityudhavarupakarnya Suhridam Dusaham Vadham Jnanina Shamayachata Shokam Utpatitam Buddha.
Shri Shuka Uvacha Ityudhavadupakarnya Suhridam Dusahambadam Jnanena Shamayakshata Shokam Utpatitam Buddha.
Shuka Uvacha Ityudhavadupakarnya Suridam Dusahamvadam Jnanena Shamayachata Shokam Utpatitam Buddha.
Shri Shuka Uvacha Iti Udava Upakanya Suyudam Dushaham Vadam Jnanena Samatyat Shata Shokamut Pititam Buddha.
Shri Shuka Uvacha. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, Iti, thus, Udavat, from Udava, Upakarnya, hearing, Suridam, of friends and relatives, Dusaham, unbearable, Vadam, annihilation, Jnanena, by transcendental knowledge, Ashamayat, pacified himself, Shata, Vidura, Shokam, bereavement, Utpatitam, arisen, Buddha, the learned. Translation. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, after hearing from Uddhava all about the annihilation of his friends and relatives, the learned Vidura pacified his overwhelming bereavement by dint of his transcendental knowledge. Purport.
Vidura was informed that the result of the battle of Kurukshetra was the annihilation of his friends and relatives, as well as the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, and also the passing away of the Lord. All these hurled him into bereavement for the time being, but because he was highly advanced in transcendental knowledge, he was quite competent to pacify himself by enlightenment. As it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, Due to our long association with bodily relationships, bereavement on account of the annihilation of friends and relatives is not at all astonishing, but one has to learn the art of subduing such bereavement with higher transcendental knowledge. The talks between Uddhava and Vidura on the topic of Krishna began at sunset, and Vidura was now further advanced in knowledge due to his association with Uddhava.
That transcendental knowledge the transcendental knowledge is understanding about the Lord's appearance and activities, transcendental. Dharma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata. Chakradeham punar janma nanti mame sarjan. He knows that the living entity is never subject to death. And he knows that the living entity is the same quality of spiritual being, substance, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna, his activities are all transcendental. There's no material activities. So therefore there's no karma. There's no karmic reaction for Krishna, or even for any of the devotees of Krishna. If they're fully engaged in devotional service, then they're not affected by the karma. Just like a police officer, he notices there's someone driving very fast, much faster than the speed limit. So he in turn goes even faster still, apprehends the culprit. But the officer gets no penalty for going faster or breaking the law. Because his breaking the law is not actually breaking the law, it's upholding the law. Therefore, there's no penalty for him. But the other party is subjected to penalty because he's broken the law. He's not obeying Krishna's, or in this case, the government's law. So everyone has to do what Krishna says. And if they don't do what Krishna says, then they're guilty of breaking the law. And there's karmic reactions. If one wants to take others' property or exploit others for his own enjoyment, all these things we learn when we're young that we're not supposed to do these things. They're against the law. But by bad association, we learn that we can do these things and try to get away with them without getting punished. And so some people think they're doing that. They think, well, I've only gotten 2 speeding tickets in my whole career. And I figure each one costs about $150. So $300, not bad for 40 years of driving. So I guess I saved so much time. I must have saved hundreds of hours of time by speeding. And right? So it was a good investment. My risk was limited. So he thinks he goes on telling the story to his followers, and they follow him. This way we develop a whole array of those who break the law, and they think it's a good idea, it's a good investment. And they do that in all sorts of fields. Even it goes as far as murder. If you get caught for murder, among some circles, they say, well, there's a good chance you get out after 7 years. a good chance you can get. If you have a good lawyer, and I know a good lawyer, I found a good lawyer. He's done many cases where the people murdered someone, and he got him off after 7 years. He got him paroled. So you don't have to worry so much. And of course, try not to get caught, but there's ways to do that too. You can avoid getting caught. You know, all this different. Instead of trying to understand the value of following these laws, or understanding the principles behind them, or understanding the person that has established them, and how everyone benefits by following, they're just dedicated to trying to avoid them. And this is basically what the material world is all about. Trying to avoid the Supreme Personality, Godhead, and His instructions. And just do it your own way. And you reduce your risks. Enjoy as much as you can. Take advantage of others whenever possible. And in that way, live an exciting life. You may get caught sometimes, but that's part of the spice and it's part of the enjoyment, the action. We like action. And that's the purpose of life. That's what they're thinking. The purpose of life is just to squeeze out as much enjoyment as you can from these senses and from the sense objects. And that's it. There's no other purpose in life. Because you can't say there's a purpose if everything is just chemicals. If there's no such thing as a living being or person, soul, then everything's just a combination of chemicals. And nobody cares if chemicals are happy or not, or what kind of experience they're having. So this is the kind of philosophy that's present now, especially in the more civilized countries. And they simply go on with this. And it's being propagated on a large scale. And most everyone is going along with it. Because if you don't go along with it, then you'll be subjected to some restrictions in your sense gratification. You'll be considered not very intelligent. You'll be considered just. I would like to ask Dominator, you can take over. If anyone has any questions or comments, I can make them now.
Hare Krishna. I'm going to try my best to relay my question. Is seeking impersonal peace in a so-called spiritual way, like moksha or the whatever, like a form of sense gratification then? if it's not seeking a personal relationship with Krishna?
A nice question. Yeah, if you're not serving Krishna's senses, then you're going to be serving your own senses. But it's an impersonal liberation. And personal liberation is not necessarily it's not the most perfect way to attain peace, because you can't attain peace without being fully Krishna conscious, because there's always going to be some kind of if you're not fully Krishna conscious, there's going to be some anxiety for some enjoyment, because in the impersonal liberation, you're not getting the full extent of the spiritual bliss. So, which comes from the variety and loving exchanges in the spiritual world with Krishna. So, if the senses aren't perfectly engaged in Krishna conscious, they're going to be demanding from us some other kind of engagement, so you won't be peaceful. But Krishna consciousness means to engage the purified senses in Krishna's service. So it's an active process. It's a spiritual process, spiritual activities, spiritual sense gratification. As Krishna is called Hrishikesh, he's the master of the senses. He's also called Govinda. He's the giver of pleasure to the senses. So we have such a nice system here. Pure devotional service, engaging one's senses in Krishna consciousness. One gets spiritual pleasure, and he also becomes the Goswami. He becomes the master of the senses as well. He brings the mind and the senses under control. Krishna says, "Yato yato nishchalati manas chanchalamas tato tato niyamyaitat atman eva vasangnayat." That wherever and whatever the mind is drawn to, one must withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. And practically speaking, that's our process. That's the practical yoga, is just bringing the mind, wherever the mind is on you, bringing it back under the control of the self. And what's the purpose of the self? Well, the purpose of the self is to hear about Krishna ultimately from the pure devotees. And so the spiritual master, just by hearing from the spiritual master, transcendental knowledge is imparted onto the receiving party. And we hear Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartamabhyayam. That pure devotional service is the most confidential knowledge. It's the most perfect transcendental knowledge. And Prabhupada, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he gives a nice list. He says that transcendental knowledge begins with knowledge of the self. And then more confidential than that is knowledge which is related to devotional service. And then even most confidential, most perfect is a direct pure devotional knowledge of the direct pure devotional service. So it's really nice if we just take that high road and we hear about pure devotional service from the pure devotee, then all other purposes are served. Whatever purpose is served by the small reservoirs of water are immediately served by the large reservoir of water. So if we just hear about pure devotional service, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the ocean of the nectar of devotion, So if we hear this, then we'll be satisfied. And all other kinds of confidential knowledge of the self, self-realization, and knowledge of the paths which are pertaining to Krishna in a more indirect way, will all automatically be revealed. So yeah.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj was talking about the kind of the defects of the conditioned soul, namely like the propensity to cheat other people. So in light of this, like what are some ways you think that we can push forward to create the world that we want to create, that we're trying to create here?
Yeah, practically speaking, the only thing that we can do is just speak the truth in an uncompromised way. You know, what else can we really do? Don't have so much influence, don't have so much, influence in the world. But what I can do is I can preach Krishna consciousness, you know. So that's what we've been asked to do. It's just speak the truth and nothing but the truth, you know. And the truth is what Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita and what we hear in Bhagavatam. You know, so we just speak what Krishna has spoken. That's the most beneficial thing we can do. You know, that's what he's actually given himself. So God has given this transcendental knowledge as like, I mean, this is the perfection of religion. Because somebody who hears this transcendental knowledge, automatically everything will be there, you know. The highest realizations of the nature of reality, the nature of the self, everything will be there. And from that comes causeless or a detachment from the material world, detachment from a cessation of horrible activities that are going on in this world. So when one becomes a detached from these lower pleasures, then he's not going to be acting in a way which will to try to acquire those things, and you know, so solution will be there. So many nice things come from that. What is self-realization? A part of self-realization means to see all living entities with equal vision. You know, to see that the living entities are spread throughout the material universe, sarvagata. So whatever, again, back to that a little analogy before Krishna speaks in the Bhagavad Gita, whatever purpose can be served by the small bodies of water can be served by the large ocean. So that means like devotional service has everything in it. It's all auspicious. You know, it's transcendently more pleasurable than anything. Kama, you know, dharma, kama, artha, moksha. So whatever movements are there in the material world which are aimed at trying to benefit one particular kind of living entity, that purpose will be served if we spread the Krishna consciousness movement. But not only just not just that, but the purpose of all the movements, you know. So yeah, what's that? That the analogy of the bodies of water? Yeah, that whatever purpose can be served by the small bodies of water can be served by the large body of water, you know. So that analogy can be used in a lot of different ways when referring to devotional service in comparison to other things, whether that's this movement or this kind of education or that thing, or this pleasure or that pleasure. Everything is there in devotional service. All purposes are fulfilled, you know. So we shouldn't have any reservations. Yeah.
What is the proof of the effects of chanting Maha Mantra?
Our highest form of proof is the Shastra. So we hear of the effects of chanting Hare Krishna, but also, practically speaking, if we're chanting, then we're able to see the effects pretty clearly. It's Krishna says pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam, like that this knowledge, this devotional service is the perfection of religion because it gives perception of the self by realization. So realization comes, knowledge comes. You see that the desire for enjoying the material world ceases or it slows down, and your desire to want to chant and hear about Krishna increases, and the effect that hearing about Krishna has on the consciousness, on the heart, the cleansing effect. It's a practical thing. Chaitanya Darpana Marjanam. That when you're cleaning something, you can see, well, okay, here's the I can see the floor now. I didn't know that the floor was this color, when you're cleaning your room. So we're able to identify the enemies within the heart: lust, anger, greed, avarice, all these different things. And knowledge is there. We're able to see very clearly. As time goes on and we keep chanting, we're able to see how much progress we've made. We can analyze, we can, by dint of our examination, introspective examination. My heart was so dirty, still is now. And now you can see, you pinpoint, everything is pinpointed now. Before couldn't see anything, just being swept away by so many desires. But now we're seeing, oh, I have lust, I have envy, I have all these different things. They're becoming more and more acute. So the cleansing process is working. We're becoming more tolerant. Becoming good qualities are beginning to manifest, in our character. And so those are some things. But ultimately, the proof is there in the sadhus and the shastra. So, the chief binding force of this material world is sex life. Is actually sex life. The sex life is present within. It's all over the whole universe. The lower planetary system, the higher planetary, all living entities are engaging in this. Whatever body they have, demigod body, animal body, this body, that body, they're all engaging in this activity, and it's furthering their existence in the material world. So what's the practical thing is that when one chants Hare Krishna, he can become free of this thing that not even the topmost yogis or the topmost, jnanis or the topmost philosophers can free themselves from. The devotee, the bhakta, is freed from this thing. So we were hearing that brahmacharya, you can't practice yoga, traditional yoga, without practicing brahmacharya. And jnanis and these other types of yogis, they don't even accept grihastha brahmacharis, But devotional service is so transcendently powerful that we can be grihastha brahmacharis, which basically means, you take the grihastha ashram, but because devotional service, we're engaging our senses full time in Krishna consciousness, and there's so much pleasure there that we're able to mitigate the demands of the genitals, the demands of the hands, and the demands of the mind, all these different demands of the senses, and want to be engaged in sex pleasure. We're able to mitigate that just by engaging in Krishna consciousness, devotional service. So that's one practical, one big point. And we see that with devotees like Srila Haridas Thakur, and we also see many examples of very powerful yogis who fell down, So that's the transcendental potency of devotional service, is that if we want to get rid of this material contamination for once and for all, then we have to take to this process. This is the most potent process, Like Krishna says, it's the most confidential knowledge. It's purifying. It's the perfection of religion, and it's joyfully performed. So what better process could we have? This is perfect, this process, this devotional service. It's supremely satisfying to the self. And when we engage in it, it's supremely satisfying to other living entities as well, Because the devotee is pleasing not only to Krishna, but because he's pleasing to Krishna, then and therefore he's pleasing to all living entities as well. So we've got many reasons to take up this devotional service. Just like the 6 Goswamis, they were Dhira Dhira Jana Priya Priya Karo. They were pleasing to all classes of men. Like Srila Sanatana Goswami, such an exalted personality. You can read about him in his old age and how he was basically I forget where exactly he was at this time, but it's described that he was like the father of everybody in that particular area because he knew all of them at such an intimate like platform, like loving platform, and they all loved him. So all classes of men, they loved the devotees. So, and the devotee is just simply acting for the benefit of all living entities by preaching this Krishna consciousness movement, and giving his association to the living entities. So, any more questions or comments or anything that anyone wants to say? Nothing. Yeah, so we were hearing this verse, Vidura. He was bewildered, losing his family and stuff like that. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that the wise laments neither for the living nor for the dead. And so this kind of transcendental knowledge, being able to see the living entity is actually eternal. Ajo nityam shashvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. That living entity is eternal, he's immutable, he's indestructible, he's not slain when the body is slain. Najayate mriyate vakadachin, nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyaha. There's not birth or death for such an individual. So the learned sage, he's able to see that the living being is eternal. So what is there to lament for? Either in the conditioned living entity is embodied and he's suffering, or once he leaves that body, he acquires another body. What is there to lament? If one is lamenting due to that for some material lamentation, then our potency as preachers, we become impotent, we become ineffective, because from that position we can't act, because we're in illusion, we can't actually bestow knowledge. How can we bestow knowledge? So if I'm bound with ropes, how can I untie somebody else? You can't do that. So the importance of being able to control the mind is there. We have to be able to do that because we need that knowledge and that pure consciousness and that vision to be able to execute our mission and our duties in this life, in this world. To preach Krishna consciousness, to serve Krishna, and to serve other living entities by doing so. So it's very important for us to come to that transcendental platform, which can easily be done if we set aside all other things and we just accept the spiritual master and we just accept the words coming from the spiritual master. Very easily we can do these things. But difficulty is I've got contaminated desires. How will I be able to set aside my desires and using my intelligence just accept this process of hearing from the bona fide source? Well, nice thing about Krishna consciousness, there's many ways that we can get plugged in and we can get purified to the point where we can accept the will. So I set aside my desire and I accept the will of the Lord and his representative. So we can get plugged in so many different avenues. And we can also plug in other living entities to so many different things. Prasadam, nice humble service, all different kinds of service that we can do. A nice literature we can read, so many different things, nice philosophy, So there's various degrees, Jnana Mishra Bhakti, Karma Mishra Bhakti, so many different things. So we're working our way to that pure platform where we're able to just set aside everything and hear from the spiritual master, realizing that that's everything. Whatever I'm looking for, whatever I need is right there, coming from his lotus mouth. Everything else is just not necessary. It's an anartha. speculating here, speculating there, but let me just hear what the pure devotee is saying. And that those words will purify my consciousness and take me up to the highest platform of realization quickly. So anyways, that's about how much time as we got. So, well, we can end there. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.